fixed view. Problem is, this thing is a little wobbly. Anybody ever buy IKEA furniture?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's the whole assemble yourself thing sometimes gets a little wonky.
It looks like the camera is a little bit crooked from the white one.
It probably is. It tends to move. Okay. And of course it's going to migrate because that's what it does. Because this isn't the thing I was actually trained to do in grad school. But, okay. So, how did the Tacitus go for you? What did you guys think of this?
I thought it was pretty interesting that he like rewrote, summarized the letter.
I'm sorry, could you?
He like rewrote like the letter. He like wrote the letter from the other person at the beginning. I don't know.
Okay, so the guy he's ventriloquizing here, right, is Calgacus, right? Calgacus is the Latinization of a hypothesized Celtic word called Calgacus, which means in possession of a blade. So we're not actually sure whether Calgacus is a name or a title. We're also not really sure that this guy actually existed because he doesn't appear in any historical records other than Tacitus's, right? So Calgacus is the head of a loose association of tribes called the Caledonian Confederacy. Do any of you know what Caledonia is or where that is? Or any...
It sounds familiar. Like I feel like I've heard it in a movie or something.
Okay. Pardon?
It has to do with
That would be in the Middle East, no. So that's not who we're talking about here. So Caledonia is the Latin name for Scotland. So, Calgacus is a Scottish chieftain who is set up in kind of in opposition to Roman conquest in the region, right? So, anything else that you guys got from Calgacus' speech, or that you noticed about the basic structure of this?
He talks a lot about how Rome was very violent and destructive.
Okay, yeah. Can we go? Can you point us to that? To the things he says specifically about Rome.
He talks about the damage done by Roman colonialism. And one thing that he doesn't do mocks them for, because Rome was basically saying that they made peace or whatever, and he mocks them because they didn't. And he says what did he say? Make dessert and call it peace.
Okay, not make dessert. That would actually be something quite different. They make a desert and call it peace, right? Yeah, they're not.
I was going to ask you. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, they're not sailing to Britain and cooking a souffle, right? This is not how this works. No, they make a desert and call it peace. So, what's a desert?
Sandy, hot, dry.
Yeah, sandy, hot, dry. Landscape, yeah. Desolate. That's the key thing there, right? All of these things, add up to that, right? Desolate. It's a wasteland. So what does he mean by this when he says that the Romans make a desert and call it peace? How do the Romans promote peace, or how do they create peace? Yeah, by just taking and destroying everything, right? And then when there's nothing left to fight back, that's peace, right? So he's referring here specifically to a Roman concept called the Pax Romana. I don't know like how much world history or European history you guys had in high school or how much you're getting now. Has anybody ever heard before the Pax Romana? Peace of Rome, exactly, yeah. Good. And what did that mean exactly? Okay, so the Pax Romana is declared by the first Emperor Augustus, right? And the basic idea is that Rome creates peace by imposing order. Stay. Knock it off. By imposing order on the rest of the world, right? So, by creating little Roman outposts across the Mediterranean world, across Europe, across North Africa, the Romans believed themselves to be promoting civilization and order, right? So in Calgacus' speech here, this reference to peace is specifically arguing that the Roman peace is a false peace, right? It's a peace that's only created through destruction. Can I get somebody to read for us the bottom of page 310, that paragraph? It starts with, "It is no use trying to escape their arrogance."
It is no use trying to escape their arrogance by submission or good behavior. They have pillaged the world, and when the land has nothing left for the men who ravage everything, they scour the sea. If an enemy is rich, they are greedy. If he is poor, they crave glory. Neither east nor west can stay their appetite. They are the only people on earth to covet wealth and poverty with equal craving. They plunder, they butcher, they ravish, they call the lying name of empire, and they have a desert and call it peace.
Okay.
Desert.
Yeah, remember, like, dessert is spelled with two S's, right? Two S's in dessert, yes. Yes. Okay, so let's look through this paragraph and see if we can find any particular like strand of repetition or imagery here. Do you notice any particular kinds of words here that seem to repeat?
Seem what?
Any particular like kinds of words or words that are similar to each other that kind of run through this, right? Pardon?
Plunder, butcher.
Okay, plunder, butcher. Good. Anything else that goes along with this? Ravish. Okay, yeah. Pillage, yeah. So what do all of these words have in common? What do they refer to? Yeah, they're all violence. They're all about taking someone or something down, right? Or taking things that aren't yours, right? So yeah, they all refer to violence and taking. So there's a kind of like brutality in all of these words, right? And why does he think the Romans take? What does he think is the purpose of all this?
They're like trying to get peace or whatever. That's what they're trying to do.
Uh-huh. Well, that's at least what they say, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say so that they can call it their empire, so that it's theirs.
Okay. Claiming everything for themselves, right?
Trying to take over the world.
He's trying to take over the world, yeah. Do they care, according to Calgacus, whether the people they're conquering actually have any stuff they want or not? Yeah, they plunder and invade without regard for, what's that?
I said like no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, he says, look, if the people have no wealth, they crave glory, right? There's always the glory of conquest. Like war for its own sake seems to be something that he attributes to Roman passions, right? And it might help if we get a little bit of context here for Calgacus' situation. So, what I have here is a map of Roman military campaigns in what is now Scotland near the end of the 1st century CE, right? So the thick arrows with the numbers next to them represent Roman army movements. And the little white squares represent Roman army camps and forts. The numbers next to the arrows represent the years in which those movements took place. So what do we notice about the way the Romans are moving around Scotland over time? Yeah, they're going kind of up and around, right? They've also cut off the bottom of the country here, right? And by the year 84, they have mostly kind of come around the top as well. Now, the dotted line along the coast represents the position of the Roman fleet, right? So that's where they had the navy. What do we notice about that?
It's along the coast, we can't escape.
Yeah, there's nowhere for the Caledonians to go but in, right? And given what we see with those troop movements, they're being hemmed in further and further, right? So they have no place to run. And if, like, given where Scotland is located, everybody knows where Scotland is geographically, right? Like in relation to Europe? Or do we not? Okay. So do we know where England is?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so okay.
I was in.
Okay. So if Europe is your God, like, you guys need better geography education in high schools. Okay, so if mainland Europe, so let's say like this is France right here, right? England is right across a thin strip of water called the English Channel from France, and Scotland is then to the north of England, right? So they can't go, so the Scots can't go south into England anymore. The Romans have blocked them there. And they also can't go east to Europe, either to escape or for supplies, right? Because the Roman army is the Roman navy is between them and the continent. So they're stuck, right? They are in very much a kind of last stand position. And Calgacus is giving this supposed speech before the battle in which his people are finally defeated, right? So the battle is referred to as the Battle of Mons Graupius. So Mons Gropius, Mons is the Roman word, is a Latin word for mountain. So translated into English, this would be Gropian Mountain. We don't actually know where this place was, except that it's somewhere in the interior of the Scottish Highlands. There is a mountain range in Scotland called the Grampians, but that's a range, and it seems like this battle was fought in kind of like a single mountain near a plain and near forests. So, our antagonists here are the Romans, led by the general Gnaeus Julius Agricola, and the Caledonians, led by Calgacus. So, the Caledonian strategy had largely been to avoid battle with the Romans and to kind of keep retreating further back into places they thought the Romans couldn't reach. The Romans forced them to fight by burning all of their stored grain, which meant that they could either fight or starve over the winter. So they are stuck. Now, the Caledonians did have, one advantage. They occupied the high ground, and they actually knew the land. However, they end up being slaughtered by the Roman troops. Right? It's a major defeat. Right? There are something like 360 Roman casualties, and about 10,000 Caledonian casualties. But it still doesn't end up being a total Roman victory, because the surviving Caledonians then just melt into the forest, and the Romans are unable to find them. So because they know the land, they're able to survive, and Scotland remains the only part of the island of Britain that's never really fully subdued by the Romans. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just fixing myself.
Gotcha. So, this account of Calgacus' speech comes in Tacitus' biography of the Roman general Agricola, who was his father-in-law. So he's writing an account of the life of a family member here. And he's including this episode that doesn't exactly put his father-in-law in the best or kindest light, right? It does stress his success as a general, but he allows this Celtic chieftain to make a speech that makes the Romans sound like a bunch of real shits. And let's take a look at the rest of the speech to see exactly where Calgacus thinks the Romans go wrong here, right? Can I get somebody to read for us page 311, that first paragraph on the top of the page? Starting with nature has willed it.
Nature has willed it that each man should love best his children and his own kin. These are now being torn away by conscription to be slaves in another land. Wives and sisters, even if they escape being raped by Romans as enemies, are seduced by men posing as friends and guests. Goods and possessions are consumed by taxation. The fields and their harvests by grain requisition. men's very bodies and hands by building roads through forests and marshes under the lash and subject to insults. Those born to be slaves are sold once and for all, and what is more, are fed by their masters. Britain pays for its own enslavement every day, feeds its masters every day. In a private household, the latest newcomer among the slaves is the object of derision, even to his fellow slaves. So too, in this slave household, to which the whole world has long belonged, we are the new ones, the cheap ones, who are picked out to be destroyed. For we have neither fertile lands nor mines nor harbors in which we might be kept to work. Besides, courage and an untamed spirit and its subjects are not welcome to the imperial power. Even our remoteness and our very seclusion, while they have kept us safer, have also made us more suspicious.
Okay, thank you. So there are a couple of things to pick apart in this paragraph here. So first, what does Calgacus seem to regard as natural here, right? What is the basic units of society for him?
It should go his question.
Pardon?
I said that he should go, like, in the first sentence it says, each man should love best his children and his own kin.
Yeah. So what's natural, right, is, yeah, love for your own family, right? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, yeah, loving
Okay.
your child.
Yeah. So then what does this have to do with the fears of enslavement that he talks about later on?
They'll take your kinship and children away from you.
Yeah. The fear of slavery here is in part the fear of having families broken up, right? And, he says, we have neither fertile lands nor mines nor harbors in which we might be kept to work. So this means two things, right? One, there aren't any natural resources in Scotland that the Romans want. And two, that means that they're not going to keep the Caledonians there to work, right? They're going to spread them out across the empire. So he's worried about families being scattered, right? Now, what does he compare the Roman Empire to? Yeah, slave household, right? Right, a household where all the work is done by unfree people, right? People who are held in bondage by the masters. And he's going to develop this particular metaphor over some of the following paragraphs here, right? So can I get somebody to read the paragraph labeled number 32 here, right? Or do you believe that the Romans' bravery in war?
Or do you believe that the Romans' bravery even more matches their license and peace? It is by our cooperation in this union that they have gained fame. They have exploited the faults of their enemies and gained glory for their own army. The army has been put together that are very different from one another. Success has kept it together, but it will fall apart at defeat. Or you can really suppose that Gauls and Germans and the shameful conventions, many Britons too, are bound by loyalty and goodwill. They may have been lending their lifeblood to a foreign tyranny, but they have been enemies for longer. They have been slaves. Terror and intimidation are no strong bonds of affection. When you break these bonds, fear will end and hatred begin. Everything that can inspire to victory is on our side.
Okay, thank you. So let's pause there. Right? What fact is he noting about the Roman army, or the supposedly Roman army that they're about to face? Who or what is it made up of? Okay, yeah, Germans, Gauls, Britons, right? So, are they actually fighting Romans? Pardon?
It's like a bunch of different people.
Yeah, it's all these other groups that the Romans have conquered, right? And then drafted into their armies. This is pretty typical. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. It's kind of like backtracking a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Where's Gauls? Like you said German.
Yeah.
Gauls. Where
About to explain.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, yeah, no worries. So, Gauls were a Celtic people from what is now France. Right, the Roman name for the Roman province that occupied what is now France was called Gaul. So this is also probably not what these people called themselves. It's what the Romans called them. But yeah, so you've got Gauls, Germans.
It's an awful name.
What, Gaul?
Yeah, that sounds bad.
I feel like I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was meant to be flattering. So yeah, we got Gauls, Germans, Britons. There would have also been in Roman armies in this period Sarmatians from what is now Iran, who would have provided the cavalry, right? So the point here being that this Roman army is made up of a bunch of different conquered peoples, right? Why does Calgacus think these people are served? What bond does he think the Romans are holding over them or using to hold them together?
Like, what did he use to hold them together?
Yeah, like what are the Romans using to hold these different intimidation? Yeah, that they are only fighting for the Romans because they're afraid not to, right? How does that differ from the kind of kinship bond that he is claiming unites his people?
When they break, then they'll hate them.
Yeah, these people hate each other as much as they hate the Romans, right? And if there's no fear of the Romans to unite them, they'll break apart, right? So which force does Calgacus think is stronger in terms of keeping people together? Love of family or fear of the invader? Yeah, he thinks love of family is going to win, right? And that maybe even those Britons who are fighting for the Romans, right? They're only doing it because they're afraid, and maybe they'll come over to our side, right? They're our relatives, they're our kin. We might be able to bring them along. So this is kind of getting at a larger point that Calgacus in the speech is trying to make about the Romans and about the Roman army. Shelby, you had your hand up and someone else beat you to last time. So can you read this paragraph for us, starting with, the Romans have no wives there to fire them.
The Romans have no wives, they're to fire them, no parents cannot live if they flee. Most of them have no home, country, or an alien one. They are few in number, scared and bewildered, staring around at the sky itself, and the sea and the forest all strange to them. They are in a way like men imprisoned and chained, and the gods have delivered them into our hands. Do not let their outward show alarm you. It means nothing. The gleam of gold and silver that neither shield them nor yokes. Even in the enemy lines we shall find forces of our own.
Yeah, keep going.
The Britons will recognize our cause as their own. Gaul will remember their loss or their relief. The rest of the Romans will desert them exactly as the
Yeah, you see me. Yeah.
Just then, there is nothing beyond them to fear, distant courts, colonial of old men, town sick and disunited between unwilling subjects and unjust rulers. Here is your general, here is your army, and on the other side, taxes, fines, and other punishments imposed on slaves. Whether we endure this forever, or you take quick vengeance will be decided on this field. On then into battle as you go, thank you for your ancestors and your decisions.
So let's start by thinking about that last sentence, right? What's he stressing here as he's sending his people into battle? On then into battle, and as you go, think both of your ancestors and of your descendants. past and future, right? And again, think specifically about ancestors and descendants, right? What else is he encouraging them to think about? What is he telling them you're fighting for?
Your own people.
Yeah, your own people, your kin, your family, right? This is something that you're doing for your family. Both those that are gone and those that are yet to come. And what's the point he's trying to make about the Romans at the beginning of the paragraph? This is kind of continuing from what he's saying about the Roman army being made up mostly of other peoples, right? What is he saying about, like, what is he saying the Romans lack? Yeah.
And they have their own country, the spirit of people.
Yeah. So let's try to unpack that a little bit. What does that mean? What is he then suggesting about the Romans?
That they have no real,
You say that a little louder?
that they have like no real like family.
Yeah. That they don't value these family ties, right? Or that they have no real family connections in the way that the Caledonians do, right? That this isn't personal to them. It's not about kin. It's not about your ancestors, your descendants, your sons and daughters, your wives, right? That sort of thing. Right? To them, it's just conquest. They have no connection to this place and no connection to these people. Their own people, to the extent that they have them, are far away, right? So, while he's stressing that his own people are both native to the place and connected to each other by ties of kinship, right? He's suggesting that the Romans are alien in that not only are they from a strange place, but they don't feel these same kinds of ties, right? What time is it, by the way? I set my phone to go off, but
It's 10:18.
10:18. Okay, we got some time. Yeah, can somebody, by the way, keep an eye on that for me? I set my phone alarm to go off, so David Bowie should start shouting at us at about 10:40. But if he doesn't, which often seems to happen, just if somebody could make sure that we're sticking to time. Okay. Now, Tacitus actually does something in constructing this narrative of the battle. Tacitus is a Roman. In constructing this narrative of the battle, it is actually, I think, kind of clever and a little bit subtle. I want us to go back to the part before Calgacus' speech that's just talking about Agricola, the general. Can I get somebody to read the first paragraph at the top of 310?
At the start of the next summer, how do you say that?
Agricola.
He suffered a family while in losing a son that had not been born the previous year. He bore this misfortune without the show of endurance many bravely put on. But again, not the loud expressions of grief that belong to women either. Besides this, the Lord provided relief from his sorrow.
Okay, so let's kind of sit with this a moment. All right, so what's the first thing that this tells us about Agricola, about the general?
He lost his son.
Yeah, he lost a son, right? And does Tacitus, so Calgacus would suggest that because the Romans are a bunch of flame-throwing, pillaging baby eaters, right? That they don't feel these same kinds of ties, right?
Did he say maybe did?
Yeah. This starts with Agricola being depressed over the loss of a child, right? So it's already undermining the idea that the Romans don't feel family affection in the same way that the Caledonians do, right? It's possible that they don't feel these things for other people's families, right? And certainly many of Calgacus's criticisms of the Romans are historically valid, right? But it is kind of, before Calgacus even starts talking, giving us reason to question one of the central claims in his argument, right? Now, what does it tell us here also about the way Agricola behaved after the death of his son?
He didn't really like try to show it. He just tried to use it as a relief.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange that he uses war as a distraction from his sorrow, right? That, you know, the death of the son seems to be an excuse to just commit himself to further acts of war and violence, right? But if we look at the sentence that starts with, he bore this misfortune, can somebody read that for us quickly again?
Before this misfortune without the show of endurance many great men put on, but again not the loud expressions of grief that belong to the leader.
He
Okay.
didn't like fully cover it up. He just
Mhm.
wasn't like sobbing about it.
Yeah, but I think who does Tacitus suggest sobs about misfortune? Yeah, there's gendered language here, right? This is actually pretty important to understanding the ancient Roman mindset, right? A man is supposed to behave one way, a woman is supposed to behave another way, right? In fact, our word virtue comes from the Latin word vir, which means man. And so too, the Romans, virtue meant properly masculine behavior. So the Romans believed women to be incapable of virtue because virtue was something practiced by men, right? And this involved things like, behaving stoically in the face of misfortune, courage in battle, and things of that nature, right? These are the sort of things that the Romans meant by virtue.
So like women were supposed to be like babies about everything.
Yeah, and I mean, that is the stereotype of women really kind of throughout much of European history, right? That we inherit from the Greeks and from the Romans, right? In fact, to give you an example of this, the word hysteria has at its root the Greek hyster, which means uterus. And the idea here was, the reason they used to call disorders of the mind hysteria, particularly if they were kind of panic or anxiety related, was that it was believed that these were specific to women and came specifically from disorders in the uterus, right? So women were, so the stereotype that the Greeks and Romans had of men was as stoic and logical and reasonable, and of women as hysterical and emotional. So Tacitus is, despite the fact that he is letting Calgacus speak here, right? He's also at the very beginning of this putting in a plug for specifically Roman values and showing how his father-in-law, damn it, how his father-in-law exemplified some of those values, right? You suffer a loss, you go to war, right? That's an appropriate channel for your grief if you are a powerful Roman. Okay, so does anybody have any further questions about any of this? Does everybody kind of get what's going on here and kind of you get what we just talked through. Okay. Yeah, Tammy, you look like you wanted to say something.
No, I was gonna say, for, how do you say his name, Calgacus? So when he was, like, that whole speech of his, is that something that he made up, or he just like took from like facts and stuff? Because it said that it wasn't necessarily, so it was basically just all made up.
Yeah, we don't really know. There's no way to verify whether this Calgacus was a real person, whether this was his personal name, or whether it was a title, or whether he ever gave this speech. If he did give a speech like this, whether this is actually what he said.
Like the things talked about in his speech was like accurate, or was it still all made up?
Yeah, well, there was certainly a battle
Yeah.
in the year 83 CE between the Caledonians and the Romans. That's about what I can tell you with certainty.
So like the things that they like felt about the Romans and how they believe they act and everything, was that all made up, or was that actual how they felt?
Yeah, it's not an entirely inaccurate representation of how the Roman subject peoples often thought about it. I don't know if any of you, there's an old Monty Python movie called The Life of Brian. And it's supposed to be about, it's like a comical biography of the baby born in the manger next to Jesus. And at one point, Brian joins this anti-Roman revolutionary group. And, they keep asking the question at the meeting, like, what have the Romans ever done for us? Roads? Medicine? Public health? Clean water? Yeah, but, I mean, what else? Like, what else have the Romans ever done for us? And so, it's painted as a sort of ingratitude, right? But I don't think that's what Tacitus is doing here. I think that what Tacitus is doing is using Calgacus as a character to critique certain practices of the Roman army and the Roman Empire. And to do so more or less safely, right? Under cover of the voice of an enemy, right? Well, of course, this is what an enemy would say about the Romans, right?
Okay.
So I hope that answers your question. I think that's about the best answer I can give you. Any other questions about this? So we're going to talk about how to do the response papers next time, because your first one's going to be due next week, right? I did fix all of those dates in Georgia now as well, so hopefully they stay fixed, and the next time there's an update, it doesn't revert back or whatever. The kinds of things you're going to want to do in the response paper, the kind of things you're going to want to track, are these kinds of patterns we were talking about. It's kind of like what's natural versus what's alien, right? Or, this strand of, family feeling and that sort of thing that runs through this text, and what that means, or what larger issues that points to, right? These are the kinds of things you're going to want to look for. Okay. So if there are no further questions, we'll finish up there. I'll let you go. And we will talk about Al-Hakim on Monday.
Are we in class Monday or out here?
You know what? Let's be out here again. Yeah, we'll be out here again on Monday.